Perfect, perfect, perfect. So, some of you know me, some of you don't. But this past Nationals weekend, I've got a lot of questions. I know exactly what you guys want. You might have seen the syllabus online, and I'll tell you right now, we're not going to cover all of it. But I know what you guys want. And I'm going to give it to you. I've gotten messages, fan mail, all that. Questions all weekend. It's egg. Yeah! We're covering an advanced egg tutorial today. But not really. I'm actually sub 8 on egg. I'm sub 8 on egg, so if anyone wants to beat me, bring it. But really, that's all I need, yeah. This is what we're covering today. I'm pretty sure everyone knows this thing, cube last layer. And let me show you real fast. No PLL. I'm going to teach you ZBLL, well, at least part of it. And for those of you who don't know ZBLL, there's really two steps. You do F2L, and then you do ZBLL, and you're done. It's cool, right? It is so cool! But yeah, so my name is Tran, and most of you probably don't know me. That's because back in 2009, I learned ZBLL, and in 2010, I started having too much fun in college, and I started playing StarCraft, and I stopped cubing. Yeah, but around about this January, I recently had dinner with Chris Hardwick, which is a popular name some of you might know, and I got back into cubing. And when I got back into cubing, I had this issue. I knew I had to learn a method to do, and I was wondering what the cool kids are doing these days. And after 2 days of thinking, I knew it had to be ZB. It just had to be. And I had to find a way to balance 50 hours in a research lab while finishing my bachelor's and working on my master's thesis at the same time. That would be really hard, but I learned ZBLL in 1 month. Now, give me a show of hands. Who knows full PLL? You already know ZBLL! Crazy, right? Did you know that every ZBLL case can be solved with conjugations and PLLs? Now, obviously, it's not a nice conjugation. It's not nice at all, but that's just one of many, many, many tricks. I'm talking 50 to 100 alves. You can do full ZBLL. Crazy, right? I'm totally crazy. So, today we're gonna do 4 main things. I'm gonna teach two main things. I'm gonna teach you how to get the number really low, and I'm gonna go over the 4 recognition methods. And in the last 5 minutes, I'm gonna give y'all a choice. We can either do Q&A, or I can talk more about ZB. All right, let's get started. So memorization. The first thing we have to learn is statistics and the application of statistics in cubing. So, I'm going to show you a few cases that I'm sure you all know. How many of you get this OLL case? Right? Now, a lot of you won't have this case because of edge control, but sometimes you mess up, and you will get this case. And this case is pretty rare. It's pretty rare. How often would you say you get this? You. 1 out of 200? Who else? You. 1 out of 216. Whoa. Smart man. You. Feedback. 512. So these numbers are pretty close, and one person actually knew the statistic. Now, it gets crazier because that actually was 2 out of 216, but what about this one? They look the same, right? This one has an edge cycle, but all the corners are in the correct place. This particular case happens much, 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 much rarer. Now, how many of you have seen this case? The absolute pure case in which everything is in the correct place. Oh, now I'm surprised. I believe some of you are lying because the statistics for this case is 1 in 12,000. Now, if you know statistics, that's actually equal to an LL skip. So, knowing that, when you're using a method that relies on you doing a case for, and 1 out for 1 case, and you have a case which appears 1% of 1% of the time, why would you even bother learning it? By skipping statistically unimportant ZB cases, you subtract 3% from that huge 494 big number. 3% is not that much, but we'll get to things. We're going to get the percentage really low, and I want you to keep track of the percentages here. We've dropped 3% already. Now, mirrors will drop you about 20 to 30%, and I'm going to do a little crowd interaction. So, I'm going to show the front row a thing, and I want to see if you can solve the thing. So, can you solve the cube from that state? Nice. Now, if those of you who didn't see, that was one turn. Now, if I did 2 turns, can you solve? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll be more cognizant in the future. Can you solve that? He did. It was just 2 turns. Now, how far back can we go? Can we go 3? 4? Now, this is to illustrate a point. We can trace back this easily by looking at colors and tracing blocks. Where do we put the limit? And I'll tell you, the limit for most normal cubers is around 6 to 7 turns where it gets difficult. Now I'm going to tie this into ZB, and it's going to get crazy. This is a skill that he solved it. So he solved 4 turns back. Now if I went 6 to 7 turns, 8 turns even, you could practice to do that. And if you're going back 8 moves, you already know half of a ZB alg from any position. You can learn the first 50% of an alg, don't even memorize the last part, and just use that skill to trace back the rest. You have dropped 40% of ZBLL just by practicing tracing back. That's crazy, right? Why do we even bother memorizing the last half of algs when it's just putting Z at the F2L back together? It's so simple, right? Right? So another trick. Let's talk about conjugates. I mentioned PLL conjugates. Now, just using PLL conjugates, 1 to 3 move conjugates, you will solve around 10 to 15% of the cases nicely. Like, these are pretty nice, and most of you know these cases, just doing an R before a T perm, M T perm, things like that. Those are easy cases, easy to recognize. But what about conjugating other ZBLLs? Did you know, just by learning enough conjugates and sets, you can actually skip a whole 15% easily? You can do L set, just learning T and U sets. You can use soon to conjugate to do anti-soon and other soons. By using basic, easy ZBLLs, you can solve other hard ZBLLs. And you've skipped such a huge percentage with 1 to 3 move conjugates. And think about it this way, you can conjugate from so many ways that learning all of these algs is actually completely arbitrary. Now, we've dropped about 50% right now just from mirrors, not learning the end of algs, not doing those stupid cases that are super rare, and conjugates. We're going to go even farther. But first, I forgot to say something in the beginning. I'm actually not primarily an advocate for the ZB method. I want to tell everyone, if you don't get anything else from my talk, I want you to learn one thing, that nothing is impossible and that there are no limits. You can jump really high and touch the moon. You can swim across the Atlantic Ocean. You can turn into a car and have a friend drive you to the interstate. And when you get there, you will turn into a robot. Yes. Now, this is coming from someone from 2010 when records were absurd. Like, if you told someone back then that you could sub 1 a 5x5 or sub 20 blind, we wouldn't believe you, but not much has changed. What's changed is our expectations. We believe that we can do so much more. And people used to think ZB was impossible. It's not. 1 look last layer is possible. I'm not talking like the 1,000-something out cases. Jabari's here, he can do most of those. We can do this, anything is possible. There are no limits. So, the next thing is really big. So, if you're on speed solving, you might remember, I posted something back in January as I was trying to get back into cubing about using 2 OLLs to solve ZBLLs. And there were trends and it was kind of nice, but there were 2 big disadvantages. One disadvantage was, well, I'll tell you how it works. If you take 1 OLL and do another OLL, you can solve the last layer. And by doing 1 OLL and doing setup moves before the second one, you can solve up to 64 ZB cases with just 2 OLLs. You can switch it around, do one from a different angle, mirror one, inverse the other, do a U between them, things like that. The permutations get ridiculous, but The thing is, when you do that, the disadvantages are redundant cases. You'll start solving the same case, and when you have a bad ZB case, the combination of OLLs actually is kind of bad and it's long. Well, what keeps us from saying that we can't fix this system, that we can't take it to another level, that we can make it something better? And I've made something better out of it. I'm going to introduce a concept of what I like to call semi-algorithms. Instead of using full OLLs, there are actually a pattern of triggers and moves that you can construct full algorithms with. And by giving them a name, such as A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, things like that, and just combining a linear combination of 2 to 3 semi-algorithms, which are just basic triggers and short algorithms that by themselves don't do much, but in combination can solve full ZBL systems. So you could shorten an alg to something as short as A1, and then do the rest purely by figuring it out on the fly. And over time, about 3 to 4 months, it will be in your muscle memory. And that is seriously how fast it'll take to learn full ZBLL. And these semi-algorithms are actually extremely fast. Some of you might know them as R prime U2, RU2, RU D prime. And it's all about arranging them in the correct order. And I'll tell you, there is a pattern to these things. It makes perfect logical sense, and it gets even more powerful later, as I'm going to explain. Well, I might as well explain it now. So, some people have a problem memorizing an alg and associating it with a case. Well, you don't have to. You can force it. You can force trends in your algorithms. So let's say if all of your ZB algs in different families have the same edge permutation, you can force them to have all of them to have the same semi-algorithm, so that you know in the middle there will always be that semi-algorithm, so you always know the middle 4 turns. You never have to memorize those 4 turns, and you will always know what case belongs with those. And by forcing trends in our ZB algs, we can memorize them so much easier, and we can do it so much quicker. These trends aren't something that we have to find necessarily, but they're something that we can force simply by making our algs better. Did you know that you can make any alg into 2gen with the maximum of 1D move and 1D prime? 1F and 1F prime? All of these algs are something that we can consciously control and manipulate, and it's up to us. People give up so easily because they don't put in the time. And another thing that people say is bad about ZBLL is that the algs aren't good. Have any of you actually tried generating PLLs? The fact that we have nice PLLs is actually a minor miracle. And if we can generate nice PLLs, ZBLLs are easy. It's all about the time and work and effort that we put into it. So, going back to the semi-algorithm system, by simply memorizing 50 to 80, 50 to 100 of these semi-algorithms, and putting them into an array, and forcing trends and setting them up. If someone were to put the time and work into doing this, we actually could have people learning ZBLL super easily. If you wait like a few years, I'll do it, but it'll take a while. I actually don't have the incentive to do it because I already know it. But yes, I actually know the algs, but I'll talk about if you want to learn how to progress from using the beginner system, which is semi-algorithms and tricks, into going into the intermediate system where you use a few mirrors and you start using the fast algs. And in the advanced cases where you have multiple cases and you have all kinds of cool stuff that you can do. So, already, just from using semi-algorithms and all those tricks, we dropped the ZBLL number so low that it's within the grasp of anyone who wants to learn it. I'll come back to that if I remember anymore. So let's talk recognition. So, most of you are, some of you are familiar with this. So with ZBLL, the first thing you do is you memorize this. You look at the COLL case. You find out where the corners are, and you can either do the edge cycle, see where the edges are going in reference to a reference corner. You can use Baum-Harris style, where you look at one corner and the 2 stickers next to it. You can use my method, where you look at the edges that match with that corner, or you can just look at the colors. And I'm going to talk about the pros and cons right now. So, edge cycle recognition. For beginners, it's bad because you have to line up the corner to see the edge cycle easily. It's not obvious sometimes where the edges are going. But the advantage is once you get good enough at it, and multiple cases have multiple reference corners, you can actually recognize ZBLL from multiple angles. ZBLL recognition in and of itself is actually very, very simple. It's really easy. You can ask the other two ZB guys. It's absurdly easy. There are no limits. Anything is possible. And I don't think that's a really good method to use the edge cycles. A better method is Baum-Harris because when looking at 4 stickers, it's very fast. It's so fast, but it limits you because you have to AUF and you have to do it from certain angles. And it adds 1 to 2, 3 moves sometimes because of the move at the end sometimes. And I don't think it's that great. So I wanted to say to myself, how could I improve this method? And that's how I came up with my recognition system. And we're going to go back to statistics. So with my recognition system, I can look at one edge. And with that one edge, if I don't see the other edge, there's a 50-50 chance that it can either be in the UB position or the UL position if I'm looking at it from the front, right, and top, like this corner. And most people would say it's a 50-50 chance. It's actually not. If you know which case is more common and you have a good sense of intuition, you can actually guess the ZBLL purely from 2 stickers. And you will actually be right most of the time once you get a good grasp of color blocks. And it's crazy because can you imagine doing an alg without recognizing it? Just halfway recognizing it? These recognition times become instant because just with pure intuition, you will know the ZBLL case. All that's left is to perform it. But my method has its drawbacks because some of the times you might be wrong. However, the more you do it and the more you look at the color blocks, you start to see the colors by themselves. And once you start making mental connections with these things become really easy. And I want to address something. People say that ZBLL is harder than PLL. I actually think that it's easier. And let me tell you why. If you're doing PLL from just 3 faces, the top face gives you no information whatsoever. It's a solid color. And we like to pigeonhole ourselves into these recognition methods. It's completely arbitrary. Because from a ZBLL perspective, you can get information from the top and the sides. Instead of just looking at 6 stickers, you are now looking at 9. 9 stickers which give you information. Mental connection between the top stickers and the side stickers, you can form so many more patterns that instantly tell you what the case is. It's so powerful because it's 3-dimensional instead of just 2 sides. And that's why I think the best recognition method, it's so simple, it just comes with time of doing ZBLL over and over. Eventually, as you do ZBLL, you can just look at the colors and know the case. Isn't that true? Recurring blocks, recurring patterns, there's only 490 something of them. That's it. And, well, we're faster than I thought, so would you like question and answer or like to hear applications? Keep going? Raise of hands. Want me to keep going? Q&A. Okay, I'll keep going, so. Egg. Egg? You want egg? You can talk to me later about egg. Anyways, so applications. So, did you know that on 4x4, when you get to last slot, if you do ZB last slot, you can actually see the bad edge, and you can force the easier ZBLS, which saves you about 3 to 5 moves, depending on how bad it is. After you solve the edges, orient the edges, normal people can force the nice PLL, which saves you some turns, but PLL is generally around the same amount of turns. There are a few anomalies, but there's not that much difference between a T and a Y perm. However, with ZBLLs, the difference between families of ZBLL are huge. By changing the edge cycle, you're saving at least 3 to 5 moves by forcing the nicer ZBLL and forcing the nicer last slot. And it helps you so much because you're doing this in one look. If you're doing this normal way, you don't necessarily see the bad edge during last slot. And you do the last F2L slot, You take a second to look at the OLL, do parity, and then tackle PLL. Whereas if you were using ZB, parity, then last slot, last layer, you're done. That's why I think for odd number, even numbered big cubes, ZBLL adds a really nice edge. What else? So, egg? Okay. Egg? Blind? Okay. I'm going to show y'all a quick tutorial on how to do egg really fast. Now, huh? You want to 1v1 me? Come up to the stage! All right.
3, 2, 1. I screwed up.
Oh, no.